Welcome everybody on YouTube. My name's John Thompson, and we're in the middle of a series on the Catch20Too channel called Understanding Your Pain. So if you're like me and you've been disappointed, devastated, and don't like the decline of your physical health, and you would like to figure out what is it that I don't know that I need to know so that I can do what I need to do to get on the incline, and how high can you go? The more I learn, the more I get curious about competing with my 20-year-old self, because I know now at 50 what I didn't know then at 20, and I think that I can make up in wisdom what I lack in youth. So on that experiment, today I want to talk about a subject, and we're going to go into the triangle today in the way I look at health, being a practitioner 19 years, tens of thousands of hours of working on people. We have this foundation called structure, and over here is chemistry, and over here is mindset. And mindset is that mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual side. And one of the transitions that I've had in the last 4 years has been very useful for me, where I shift how I look at a very common story. I don't know, I grew up in the 70s and I was a kid in the 80s, and there was a book or a story called The Tortoise and the Hare. And I race cars. Fast and loud is how I do things. I love intensity. As many times as you can read me that story, I never left that story saying, okay, I'm going to be the tortoise. Never. It was like, okay, yeah, well, the hare just needs to do this, this, and this, and then the hare is going to win. That's how I look at the story. I don't know what the author intended. I have now, for the first time in like the last 4 years, said, what if I just take a tortoise mentality? And I'll give you an example. Like 4 years ago, one of my clients / students introduced me to Ben Patrick of Knees Over Toes. And I started watching Ben. He has a different way of exercising, more towards the joints, more towards mobility and flexibility, and rebuilt himself from devastated knees in his 20s, actually in his teens through his 20s, to now jumping higher than he ever is in his early 30s with kids. So what did I learn from Ben? One of the things I loved about Ben was he would tell me that while he was working on himself in his 20s, some of the moves that he does easily today in his 30s, it took him years with an S to do it. And he was just talking about, when your knee goes over your toes, it's harder. And I understood this. I had a ton of pain in my knees. And I remember what it reminded me of is when I was 38, I got a new device. So the way my life works is every year, 1 to 3 things will get my attention to study it and go all the way to implementation. So I see lots of shiny objects, just like everybody else. When you've been in the health and wellness arena for 20 years and been somewhat successful, everybody brings everything to you. And it was when I was 38, somebody brought the Cellerciser. What is a Cellerciser? It's a mini trampoline of wonderment. It's one of my favorite things. And I remember why I bought it. Same reason I buy just about everything that I bought. I saw a guy who was older than me. So when I was 38, David Hall, the guy that was on the Cellerciser, was 50 plus. And he was able to do a bunch of things physically that I couldn't do. And he was using this as a training thing. Now, all right. so I'm on here, and what I remember David Hall saying is when he first started with the cellar sizer when he was in his 30s, he said he worked on his knees by just bending his knees a little bit and bouncing and slowly and slowly and slowly going down. And then I remember what he said next. He said it took him a year to get all the way down. And when I was 38, that immediately just eliminated it from the things that I was going to try to do. Why? Because I was impatient. I'm an American. I want it now. Amazon tomorrow. Anybody know what, the world is like? It's taken 4 seconds to download. What is going on? That's the mentality of today. So as soon as I heard Ben talking about this, I'm like, oh, so you're saying it took you 2.5 years to do a Nordic, hamstring exercise. And I'm like, maybe I should take a different mentality to work out. And now currently I am looking at what can you do. This is completely un-American. In 10 years. And I can tell when somebody's been doing things for 10 years. After 10 years of doing it, you get to walk around in the promised land. Some of my favorite examples. I am usually listening to my phone to study. Maybe 10% I'm getting entertained. But my favorite entertainment is a man named Anatoly, or he goes by Anatoly. He is a power lifter. Anatoly is a skinny guy, happens to be 5'11" and about 170 pounds, which is exactly what I am. Now, he started powerlifting at age 14. He is now 25, 26. So when you work on powerlifting, when you're 100, probably started at 120 pounds when he was 14 years old. After 10 years, you can get good enough at it if you survive 10 years and you can work at a pace that, your body accepts. Now he can, at that weight, he can deadlift over 650 pounds. And most people that are 300 pounds can't deadlift 600 pounds. So he goes and he pretends to be the janitor and puts on coveralls or pretends to be some kind of geek. So he covers up his physique, which isn't super impressive anyway, but it's more fun. He's one of the best actors in the world. I'll go look up Anatoly. But, he will go lift up weights that most people would use 2 hands to pull up, and he'll lift it up with 1 hand, kind of accidental like he doesn't know what he's doing, because he's a master. Why? Because he put in 10 years to learn a subject. So I'm on YouTube and started really putting stuff on YouTube in the last couple months. I am looking to get good in 10 years. I started knees over toes stuff and some of the working on flexibility stuff in 2021. I am looking at 10 years of it. So I don't care when I'm in the promised land. I just look forward to doing fun things when I get there. So part of it is this mindset of how long is it going to take me? Now, in this video, to talk about pain, I want to use one of the analogies that keeps me sane. I am a practitioner of almost 20 years, but I've been a dad for 14, and I have 5 boys. And so you need to put things in terms that everybody understands, and almost constantly. So this helps keep me sane. Now we are in rural Minnesota, And there's a beautiful thing about rural Minnesota is we have roads and we have ditches. And some of these roads aren't super highly traveled, and some people might get a little sleepy while they're on the road. So they have these brilliant things when you start wandering too far to the ditch called rumble strips, where they go vroom, vroom. Now, we have all kinds of appetites that are designed into us for survival. We get hungry, therefore we eat. Okay? Now, everything that is good in moderation. What we tend to do as a society through training is we will grow up and on a subject of it doesn't matter what the subject is. Let's just say, how much food should I eat? Okay. Well, on this side of the road, so if we make this, we'll just do it simple and we'll just do a one-laner. If we're going one direction, we got a fast lane and a slow lane. This ditch is called too little. What happens if you don't eat it all? After a while, it doesn't work out good. Okay. Over on this side, we're anti too little. It's called too much. Okay. Now, there's times to eat less. There's times to eat more. But there's too much and there's too little. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, what we tend to do as a society, and I tend to do it and I watch myself, is when we find something that we find is off, we know we're in a ditch. Let's just say, my parents were too strict. So we know over here, too much discipline, too strict is a ditch. Bible says my people perish. Why do my people perish? My people perish for lack of knowledge. Okay? Now, when we have an experience that we call negative, this is too strict, my parents are over in this ditch, then we decide we're going to do a course correction. So we drive out of this ditch all the way over into this ditch called, I'm not going to do anything. And then my parents barely did anything. They were too lenient. So they were over in this ditch, and my correction's going to be, we're just going to watch their every move all the time. So what I have found is, if we understand the game, most of the time, a 5% to 20% correction is all we need. But I don't look into the world with a trap called either or. Either or is a trap. Both lanes are good. The fast lane is good. There's times to go fast. And there's times to go slow. And none of this is a moral conversation. Most of this is about preference until you get to here. Until you get to the warning signs, and then the ditch is going to come. So taking this mindset to just about any subject, You know, I had a mindset of I want to get there in 6 weeks. It was like an eternity. A 6-week program. What? I wanted 6 inches of vertical in 2 weeks. You know, this is the things that we try to sell. And it's like, I can tell you, as I did in the previous video, all of the times I tried these 6-week programs, it ended up in failure. Why? Because none of it took into account where I was physically. There is a condition of tissue required for movement. God gave us a gift called pain. That's what these rumble strips are. They're telling us we're off track. We're over in the danger zone on either side. And we can call this strength and mobility. You know, we could get over on this side, we could get super strong. Dense muscles through a short range of motion. And over here, we could be super flexible. I watch my 8-year-old. He can sit on a counter, tuck his knees into his chin, and just be there in a full, you know, bottom squat for hours. It'd take me hours to get into that position. So do we want to be strong or do we want to be flexible if we want to be pain-free in our movement? Well, we want to be both. The question is where are we in strength and where are we in flexibility? And what does the road look like to get there? And I'll tell you this, it's if you want to have a badge that there's a trophy out there. I don't know where you get it, but I know that I was always striving for it in my teens and in my 20s and until recently. It's called, I got there first. I got there faster than you. It was always the game. Oh yeah, I've been playing guitar. Well, it only took me a week to learn that song. It took you a year to learn that song. Whatever it is, it's always this competition. I have little kids too, and I got there first. Just about every night to go to bed. I will chase my kids because they like attention. And what are we going to try to do? Can they beat Daddy upstairs? Why? We just want another win because we want to compare. It's either you're fast or I'm fast. And so what do we do with this mindset of comparing and getting there fast? Now, here's how I look at it today. Do you really want to say I got there first? Well, if you only want to be there for a couple weeks, I can remember doing the jump soles. You know, the shoes with the big old feet and no heel, the platforms. And I tell you what, I was doing those jump soles on my 6-week program, and my vertical went up. And for 2 weeks, I could dunk a tennis ball on a 10-foot rim. And then I blew out something in my ankle or my calf, or I can't remember what it was. And then for like 6 weeks, I couldn't do much of anything because I wasn't thinking about how long I wanted to be there. How fast can I get there is the mindset, because I'm impatient and I'm already comparing myself to people that are better than me at this already, and I don't like how I look in comparison. And my ego wants to say I'm better than somebody else, so I want to say I got there faster than them. Now, if you can give that up and say, well, how long do I want to stay? this is a better question. What does it take to be there for real? I'm going to say for most things, what I am leaning towards right now is if you're serious and you want to master something, you want to give yourself a 10-year mentality. I'm right now 50. I am going to be 60. There's things I'm working on right now that if I can just make incremental gains, like the tortoise, saying, can I put 1 foot forward without having a setback? So I look at all of the tissue, all of our tissue in our body is like a fuse box. And we can condition it to be a bigger fuse. But if we want to find out what all of our fuses are set at right now, just go try to do something athletic. Go do something with a ton of speed, super dynamic, especially if you haven't tried anything in a while, and you're going to find out. There's going to be a fuse that will blow. And if you want to figure out how to go in and monitor and see where your fuses are at, and maybe even reset some, that's what we do with muscle phasing. On the table, I call it doing a map. So my people perish for lack of knowledge. And why don't we know? Well, we can't know everything. Now, everything's knowable, but our brains, we just had to stop this video and we're going to patch it. You might notice, you might not notice. Why? We ran out of memory on the phone early on in the video. Our brain has memory. It is limited. Okay? It doesn't go pre-programmed with anything. We had to learn how to walk. Now, we were pre-programmed to have maps and have reflexes and have things, but it had to pick up information over time. So, when things become traumatic and people get stuck, here's a big reason why we get stuck, or why I got stuck, is, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Why did I dislocate my shoulder 9 times? Because I didn't know what I didn't know. Why did I sprain my ankles? Why did I prematurely end all of the things that I did on my search for being a better athlete? Because I did not know what I didn't know. Now, the world offers us things if we don't know. It's called blame and shame. We're conditioned to feel bad about not knowing. As if there's some person that's pre-programmed that knows it all. So I got excited when I found out you can know. Okay, wide is the road that leads to destruction, and you're not going to be lonely on that road. Narrow is the road that leads to life, the good results that you want, and few that find it. Why? Because in order to find it, you have to seek. And seek and you shall find. So taking a seeking mentality says, I plan to be stronger 10 years from now, even though it's not automatic to get stronger. But it's possible to get stronger on purpose when you acquire knowledge on how to do it. So, taking the approach of, if I can sell myself to be the tortoise in my mentality, saying, what can I do to move forward with my goals without blowing a fuse and having a setback? As you gain strength, you gain the ability to handle intensity. We don't like the tortoise because we don't like these little short strides. But these little victories are what stack up. I talked about Ben Patrick. When I listened to his story, I jumped into that mentality. It took me 90 days of studying everything he had back when I started in 2021 to get what he was looking at doing. Now, he went from a 19-inch vertical to like a 42.5-inch vertical in 10 years. Now, take 10 years to add whatever inches to your vertical. People don't like to buy that program. And he said that the way that he gained was like a sheet of paper at a time. Hardly measurable until you let it accumulate. Now, why is that? When we have weak tissue, it can't handle that intense of an input. So it's like that tortoise walking. Now, it builds ability. Now, when you have smaller inputs, small inputs are easier to recover from. But they're not flashy. They're not exciting. It's like being on the cellar sizer and going, okay, I can go to here and it hurts today, and then a week later I can go to here, and maybe a month later I can go to here, in another month I can go to here, and no one's going to give you applause during that stage because it's not impressive. We're filling in our weak points. But you let it stack for long enough, and now you've gained all this strength, and now you can handle this much intensity because you've conditioned over time. Now we can take strides like this. And people will notice. But until you fill in the gap between here and here, now these inputs, when they're small, you can do them all the time and you can recover. After you gain strength, you can do bigger inputs, but you can't do them as often. And you don't need to, but the intensity is higher, so you can do it less often and have it be just as effective because it's more intense. So we have to monitor all of this, and this is what helps us monitor it. Pain. What can we do outside of pain? And can we move forward like the tortoise and get to the point where eventually we can do the things that we want to be able to do because we've learned how to honor those systems and to take a longer mindset to do it, to say, instead of how quick can I get there, it's how long do you want to be able to move pain-free? How long do you want to be able to play basketball or golf or pickleball? Pickleball is, new and exciting for a lot of people. I enjoy the pickleball. But whatever your thing is your thing. And hopefully this is helpful to get some of the mindset of how to move forward, gain strength, move with less pain, enjoy life more because you understand your pain better. So until then, onward and upward. Hopefully this has been a blessing to you, and we'll be back with the next video.